There is a moment near the end of the third season of The Amazing World of Gumball, in an episode called The Society, where Gumball Watterson stands in a darkened room, surrounded by every student and teacher he has spent the last 11 minutes harassing, and tells them with complete sincerity that he never wanted to cause any trouble. He says he just wanted to be included. He says he just wanted to belong. The lights come up. Banana Joe is wearing a cardboard box on his head. So is Principal Brown. So is Miss Simeon. They have invented a fake secret society on the spot, with fake robes and fake handshakes, because it was the only way to make Gumball stop. He is delighted. He thanks them. He never once considers that the entire room had to lie to him to get him to leave them alone. The line he says about just wanting to belong is meant to be sweet, and it is sweet. It is also, when you stop and look at it, the perfect summary of how Gumball Watterson does everything. He decides what he wants. He decides the world is conspiring against him for not giving it to him. He escalates until the world simply gives in, exhausted, and pretends he was right all along. And he walks away, believing he won. This video is about the version of Gumball Watterson that the show has always shown you, but that fans tend to soften in memory. Not the lovable goofball, not the well-meaning kid who occasionally messes up. The other Gumball. The one who lies until the lie eats his family. The one who breaks people because they hurt his feelings. The one who manipulates entire rooms, entire classrooms, entire towns. The one who, when cornered, will go scorched earth on whoever is closest and call it justice. The thesis is simple. Gumball Watterson goes too far constantly. The show is not subtle about it. It is, in fact, one of the show's most consistent and most carefully built jokes. And underneath the joke is something that is not actually funny at all. Welcome to Cartoon. You are going to want to stay for this one. This one goes deep. Let us get into it. To understand the pattern, you have to start small. You have to start with the kind of going too far that does not look, on the surface, like going too far at all. You have to start with the petty version, because the petty version is where the muscle gets built. The Pressure aired on June 6th, 2011. It is the 9th episode of season 1. It is a strange place to start a thesis about cruelty, because the episode is, on its face, about Masami pretending Darwin is her boyfriend in order to impress a group of older girls. The conflict is hers. The arc is hers. Gumball is, technically, in a supporting position. But watch how he behaves once he is even slightly out of his comfort zone. Watch the way he treats Penny in the small windows the episode gives them. The episode plants something that the show will spend the next decade growing. Gumball, when nervous, lies. Gumball, when embarrassed, lies. Gumball, when caught, lies harder. And Gumball, when called on it, will rewrite history in real time so that he is the wronged party. None of this is presented as a moral failing. It is presented as comedy. The show knows what it is doing. It is teaching you the rhythm so that later, when the rhythm becomes catastrophic, you will already know the song. There is a scene in The Prank, the 14th episode of season 1, that aired on July 18th, 2011, that most people remember as a slapstick sequence about a father slowly losing his mind. The setup is gentle. Gumball and Darwin discover that their father is easy to scare, and they pull a small prank on him. He yelps. They laugh. And then, instead of moving on, they pull another one, and another, and another. The show speeds up. The pranks escalate. They stop being playful long before the boys notice. By the middle of the episode, Richard is shaking. He is jumping at his own reflection. He is in a state that, if a real adult were in it, you would describe as a nervous breakdown. And the boys keep going. The prank is funny. It is also, when you describe it without the comic timing, a story about two children noticing that their father has a vulnerability and exploiting it for entertainment until it almost destroys him. The show does not tell you to feel bad about this. It does not insert a sad music cue. It just lets the prank cycle keep accelerating and trusts you to notice that what started as a joke crossed a line about 10 pranks ago, and that nobody at the table is going to draw it. The line was crossed. The boys did not see it. That is the whole story of the episode. That is the whole story of the show. Now, move forward to season 2, episode 11, an episode called The Apology, which aired on November 6th, 2012. The premise is small. Gumball, Darwin, and Aeneas accidentally hurt Banana Joe's feelings by laughing at his name. The right thing to do is also small. Apologize. Move on. And for any other character on television, that is what would happen. Gumball cannot do it. The episode is 12 minutes long, and Gumball spends almost all 12 minutes inventing increasingly elaborate ways to avoid actually saying he is sorry. He stages an apology that is technically not an apology. He hides behind Darwin. He tries to manipulate Banana Joe into apologizing first. He tries to reframe the entire situation so that he was the one who was wronged. The show is not being subtle about what it is doing here. The apology is an episode in which the apology never actually arrives. Watch it back and try to find the moment where Gumball looks Banana Joe in the eye and says plainly that he was wrong. It is not there. The episode ends with the relationship more or less repaired, but the words were never spoken. That is not an accident. That is the show telling you something about its main character that the main character would never admit. He cannot apologize. He physically cannot make the words come out. He can lie for an hour. He can scheme for a week. He can plan revenge across multiple episodes. The one thing he cannot do is say he is sorry without a footnote. This is where the pattern starts to look less like comedy and more like character. You can feel the show's writers in moments like this. They are not making fun of Gumball for being a kid. They are noticing something about a certain kind of person, and Gumball is the vehicle they are using to describe it. The kind of person who needs to be right. The kind of person for whom an apology would feel like death, because the apology would mean he had been wrong. And being wrong, for him, is not a fact about an action. It is a fact about himself. The apology is the founding document of every later episode in which Gumball does something terrible and then refuses to admit it. The pattern was named in Season 2. It just took the show a few more years to push the pattern as far as it would go. The vase pushed it pretty far. The episode aired in 2017, in the 15th episode of Season 5, and on its surface, it is one of the show's tightest farces. Nicole has been forced, every year, to display a hideous vase that her mother-in-law sent her. She wants the kids to break it. She cannot say so directly. She mimes. She hints. She acts out the shattering of the vase in front of the window so they can see. They get the message. They destroy the vase. So far, fine. The episode could end there. But then the call comes. The vase contained the ashes of a beloved family pet, a python named Roosevelt, and Nicole needs it back. And here is where Gumball does what Gumball does. He sends the broken pieces away for disposal. He does it before checking. He does it while assuming his mother is still playing the same coy game from earlier. Even though she is now openly screaming, he cannot read the room. He has decided what is happening, and the new information bouncing off the side of his head will not change what he has decided. By the time he understands, the ashes are gone, the vase is gone, and the lie about what happened has to be built from nothing because the truth is unrecoverable. Watch the episode again and notice how often Gumball is the one who pushes the cover-up further. Aeneas wants to come clean. Darwin folds first. Gumball is the one who keeps stacking the lie. He is the one who insists that the only way out is forward. He is wrong. He is always wrong about that. And the show gently lets the wrongness sit on screen without commenting on it. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The Lie is the 26th episode of Season 3, and it aired on November 20th, 2014. And it is the episode that, more than almost any other, tells you what kind of moral universe Gumball lives in. The premise is so simple that the show practically dares you to take it seriously. Aeneas wants to watch a movie. Gumball does not want her to watch it. He tells her, casually, that the movie is bad. That is the lie. It is small. It is barely a lie. It is the kind of thing that would dissolve in any healthy household within 30 seconds. But Aeneas is suspicious. She presses. And Gumball, instead of telling the truth, doubles down. He invents a reason. He invents a backer for the reason. He invents a context for the backer. The lie grows. By the end of the episode, the entire family is wearing fake mustaches and hiding in the basement of an abandoned warehouse. Because the only way to keep the original lie alive is to construct a vast scaffolding of secondary lies around it. This is not a metaphor. This is what literally happens in the episode. Watch it back. The show has put on screen, in the form of a cartoon, the exact mechanism by which a small lie becomes a life. Gumball cannot stop. Every time the truth becomes available to him, he refuses it. Every time someone offers him a path back to honesty, he kicks the door shut. The lie is no longer about the movie. The lie is about Gumball, and about the fact that admitting the original lie would mean admitting that he is the kind of person who tells lies, which would mean admitting that he is not the person he believes himself to be. So he keeps building, he keeps spinning. He drags his entire family down into a basement to maintain a fiction about a movie that, frankly, nobody in the original conversation cared about. Sit with that for a moment. The lie is not really about lying. The lie is about a person whose self-image is so fragile that the smallest crack must be defended with infinite force. There is no proportion in Gumball's response, because proportion would require him to look honestly at the size of what he has done. And looking honestly at himself is the one thing his entire psychology is designed to prevent. The show is not telling you Gumball is evil. The show is telling you Gumball is afraid. He is afraid of being seen as the person he actually is. He is afraid that if the lie collapses, the version of him that he has been carrying around will collapse with it. So he chooses, again and again, to make the lie bigger rather than to make himself smaller. That is not the behavior of a child being silly. That is the behavior of someone whose ego is the load-bearing wall of his entire personality. And the show, calmly, in 12 minutes, builds you a perfect model of how that kind of person behaves when the world will not bend to his story. There is a moment in The Plan, the 38th episode of Season 2, which aired on November 19th, 2013. Where the same psychology shows up in a completely different costume. The premise is innocent enough. Gumball, Darwin, and Aeneas discover a letter to their mother from someone named Daniel Leonard. There is a gift attached. The kids do not understand what they are looking at. Instead of asking, instead of pausing, instead of doing any of the small, ordinary things a person might do to verify a suspicion, Gumball decides immediately that Daniel Leonard is a man who is trying to steal their mother away from their father. There is no evidence for this. There is no reason for it. There is just Gumball deciding what is happening and then committing to that decision with everything he has. He drags Darwin and Aeneas into a plan. The plan involves espionage. The plan involves disguises. The plan involves treating their mother like a target rather than a person. And the punchline of the episode is that Daniel Leonard is not a man at all. Daniel Leonard is the brand name of an anti-aging cosmetics line. The letter was a marketing reminder. The gift was a free sample. The whole crisis was invented inside Gumball's head, and the family spent an entire afternoon acting on a fantasy that had no contact with reality at any point. Think about what that actually means. The Plan is a comedy episode, and it is genuinely funny, but the structure of it is the structure of a person whose default response to incomplete information is to invent a villain and then go to war with the villain he invented. He does not check. He does not ask. He does not slow down. He decides, and the decision becomes the truth. And the truth becomes a campaign. This is the same engine that drives the lie. This is the same engine that drives the vase. This is the same engine that, later, will drive much darker things. The show keeps showing you, over and over, that Gumball does not move from observation to conclusion. He moves from feeling to conclusion. And then he goes looking for observations that will support what he already decided. And when he cannot find them, he invents them. And when he cannot invent them, he simply ignores the absence. The Plan is funny because the stakes are imaginary. The same engine, with real stakes, is the engine that does the damage in every later episode this video is about. The Society is where the engine first runs at full power. The episode aired in 2015, the 33rd of Season 3, and it is, in some ways, the cleanest summary of the entire pattern in the show's run. The setup is small. Gumball does not get a part in the school play. He decides this is suspicious. He decides there must be a reason. He decides the reason is a secret society of students and teachers who have been conspiring against him. There is no secret society. There is no evidence of one. Darwin, who spends most of the show as the only person willing to say plainly what is happening, points this out. Gumball does not hear him. Gumball spends the rest of the episode disrupting class, accusing classmates, going through people's belongings, and harassing teachers, all in the service of exposing a conspiracy that exists only in his head. The school does not give in because Gumball is right. The school gives in because Gumball is exhausting. Banana Joe puts a box on his head. Principal Brown puts a box on his head. They invent the secret society in real time, on the spot, just to make him stop. And Gumball is delighted. He believes he won. He believes the conspiracy was real. He believes the system bent because his suspicions were justified. when in fact the system bent because his suspicions were so loud and so tireless that lying to him was easier than continuing to deny them. That is not a small thing. That is the show telling you something terrifying about how the world responds to a certain kind of person. If you are noisy enough, if you are insistent enough, if you are willing to be unbearable for long enough, the people around you will eventually agree that you were right. Not because you were right, but because pretending you were right is the only way to make the noise stop. Gumball learns nothing from this episode. He cannot learn from it because the episode ends with him being congratulated for the very behavior the episode is showing you was destructive. He walks out of that room believing the world owed him an apology and finally gave it. The world is not going to give it again. The world is going to be quietly more careful around him, and he will never notice. And the next time something does not go his way, he will run the same play, with the same energy, on the same scale, and the people around him will once again pay the cost of containing him. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The joy is where Gumball stops being a problem for one room and becomes a problem for an institution. The episode is the 4th of season 3. It aired in 2014, and it is a story about a virus. The virus is called the Joy Virus. It is contagious. It causes uncontrollable happiness. It spreads on contact. Richard hugs Gumball and Darwin in the morning. The hug detonates. By the time the boys reach school, they are infected. And here is where the episode does something the show does often and rarely gets credit for. It refuses to let you read the infected as victims. The infected become carriers. The carriers spread the joy with the same deliberate energy that a normal contagion uses to spread illness. They hug, they touch, they go looking for new hosts. And Gumball, infected, becomes one of the most active spreaders. He is not trying to comfort his classmates. He is not trying to share something good. He is moving through the school like a man on a mission. And the mission is to make sure that everyone around him feels what he feels, regardless of whether they want to. That is the moment where the joy stops being about happiness and starts being about consent. Watch the episode with that frame, and the comedy gets darker. Miss Simeon, who genuinely does not want to be infected, is hunted. She runs. She hides. She tries to barricade herself in. The infected do not stop. They press against the doors. They reach through the windows. They will not leave her alone, because her continuing to feel her own feelings in her own body is intolerable to them. The show is not asking you to feel sorry for Miss Simeon. The show knows you do not. The show is asking you to notice the shape of what is happening on screen. Gumball is at the front of that mob. Gumball is leading it. Gumball, the same character who in the apology could not say a single sincere word, is now leading a hunting party against a teacher whose only crime is that she does not want to feel what he is feeling. The show does not put a soundtrack under it. The show does not have a character pause to comment on it. The show just lets the chase happen and lets you notice, on your own, that the gap between mob behavior in a comedy and mob behavior in real life is mostly just the music cue. This is not a small thing. The Joy is the first episode where Gumball goes too far at scale, and the show is openly warning you that scale is the variable that turns his usual behavior into something genuinely dangerous. In a one-on-one fight, Gumball is annoying. In a room of 10, Gumball is exhausting. In a building of 300, Gumball is a public health crisis. The same engine that invented the secret society in the society is the engine that, in the Joy, is now infecting every host it can reach. And the engine does not feel guilty. The engine feels righteous. The engine has decided that the people resisting are the problem, and the people complying are the solution. And there is no part of the engine that is built to question that frame. The castle is what happens when that same engine makes contact with someone who cannot be persuaded, cannot be infected, and cannot be lied to. The episode aired on October 1st, 2013, the 33rd of season 2, and it is one of the show's quieter horror stories. Hector is a giant. Hector is also, the show carefully tells you, fragile. His mother has spent his entire life teaching him to keep his emotions calm, because his emotions have a physical scale that the world cannot survive. He cannot be upset. He cannot be frightened. He cannot be pushed. The whole structure of his life is built on a single load-bearing rule. Do not provoke Hector. Gumball and Darwin spend the episode provoking Hector. Not on purpose, exactly. They want to get into a place they have decided is a real castle. Hector tells them no. Hector's mother tells them no. The show tells you, through every visual cue it has, that the answer here is no. They keep going. They try to sneak. They try to trick. They keep poking at a situation that they have been told, in every available language, must not be poked. And then it happens. Hector loses control. The thing his mother spent his entire life trying to prevent. The thing the whole town has structured itself around. The thing that was the single most important rule in this character's existence happens. Hector turns into a rampaging monster. He destroys. He cannot stop. His mother, in trying to bring him back, dies on screen. That is what literally happens in the episode. A character dies because Gumball would not take no for an answer. The show does not pause to mark it. The show does not, in later episodes, bring it up again. There is no funeral arc. There is no apology arc. There is no consequence at all. Hector continues to exist in the show. Hector's mother does not. And the boy who provoked the situation walks away with no clear understanding that he has just caused something irreversible. The Castle is one of the episodes that Gumball fans rank highly for its emotional weight, and the weight is real, but underneath the weight, there is a fact that the show, characteristically, does not soften. Someone died. The kid who caused it never actually reckons with it. The world, in Elmore, just absorbs the damage and keeps moving. There is a version of this video that frames the castle as the worst thing Gumball has ever done. It would not be wrong to do that, but it would miss something the show is trying to say, which is that the castle is not an outlier. The castle is the same engine, running at the same speed, on a target that happened to be more fragile than the engine could survive. Gumball did not change in the castle. Hector changed. The provocation Gumball brought was the same provocation he brought to the society and the joy and the vase, and a dozen smaller episodes you have already half forgotten. The only difference was that Hector's wiring could not absorb it. The same energy that, applied to Banana Joe, ends in a fake apology nobody actually heard, applied to Hector ends in a death. The variable is not Gumball. The variable is the world's ability to take the punch. And the show has been showing you the whole time that Gumball does not calibrate. He does not measure. He brings the same intensity to every encounter here. And most of the time, the world flexes around him. And sometimes the world cannot flex, and then the world breaks. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The spoiler aired on February 19th, 2015, the 34th of Season 3, and it is one of the funniest examples in the show of an episode whose comedic premise is actually a careful piece of character analysis disguised as a runaround. Gumball and Darwin want to see a movie. They have to wait a week. The premise of the episode is that they have to make it through the week without anyone telling them what happens at the end. That is the comedy. The comedy is that they fail, and they fail in increasingly desperate ways, because the entire town of Elmore turns out to be full of people who, for one reason or another, want to spoil the movie for them. So they fight back. And the way they fight back is the part the episode is actually about. They threaten, they intimidate. They go to extraordinary lengths to silence anyone who looks like they might be about to say the wrong sentence. They are not, at any point, defending themselves from harm. They are defending themselves from information. The thing they are willing to terrorize people over is the ending of a movie they have not paid to see yet. Notice the proportion. Notice how much energy Gumball is willing to spend, and how much harm he is willing to inflict in defense of an experience that has not happened yet. He is, in functional terms, willing to break the world for the sake of preserving a feeling he has not yet had. That is the same engine again. It is just running on a different fuel. In the lie, the fuel was self-image. In the apology, the fuel was being right. In the society, the fuel was being included. In the spoiler, the fuel is anticipation. The fuel changes. The engine does not. Gumball will treat any threat to the thing he wants in the moment as an existential attack on his entire life, and he will respond with force that has no relationship to the thing being threatened. The spoiler is a comedy. The spoiler is also, when you actually look at what is happening on screen, a study in someone who cannot tolerate the universe, failing to deliver him exactly the experience he has decided he is owed. The Stink, the 26th episode of Season 6, which aired in 2018, is the same engine pointed at hypocrisy. Mr. Small, the school counselor, has spent years preaching environmental virtue. He recycles, he composts, he lectures. Gumball and Darwin discover that his actual private behavior does not match his public lecturing, so they decide to expose him. Not gently, not with care. They expose him in a way that is calibrated to humiliate, to corner, to leave him with no room to absorb the criticism without being destroyed by it. And he is destroyed by it. He abandons society. He goes feral in the woods. He becomes the thing he was lecturing about. The show plays this for laughs. It is, in fact, genuinely funny. But describe it without the comedy, and what you have is a story in which two children identified an adult's contradiction, weaponized it, and pushed him out of the community he had built. The contradiction was real. Mr. Small did deserve to be called out. But there is calling out. And there is the version where you do not stop until the person you are calling out has lost everything they had. And Gumball, when he chooses a target, does not stop at calling out. This is the part of the pattern that does not fit the standard reading of his character. The standard reading says, Gumball is a kid who gets carried away. The standard reading says he means well. The standard reading says the bad outcomes are accidents. But look at how often, in episodes like The Stink, the bad outcome is not the part Gumball did not see coming. It is the part the episode shows him going for. He wanted Mr. Small to be exposed. He wanted Banana Joe in the apology to feel small enough that an apology would not be required. He wanted the school in the society to admit they had been hiding something from him. He wanted Aeneas in the lie to be wrong. The endings of these episodes are not surprises to him. The endings are the things he was steering toward the whole time. The show frames the steering as goofy, but it is steering. He is choosing. The shippening pulls the lens back even further. The episode is the 14th of season 6, and it aired on April 20th, 2018. The premise is that Sarah, the school's resident fan of romance, finds a magic notebook from the awesome store. Whatever she draws inside it becomes real. She starts drawing the people she has decided should be in love together. The episode is technically about Sarah. It is technically her arc. But pay attention to what Gumball does inside it, because it is one of the most revealing things he ever does. He is not the one with the notebook. He is not the one writing the pairings. He is, however, the one who, once he realizes the notebook works, immediately begins thinking about how to use it. He sees the tool. He thinks about the leverage. He starts running the angles. Sarah is using the notebook to express affection, badly, but earnestly. Gumball is looking at it like a weapon. The episode is a comedy about love. It is also, briefly, a glimpse into how Gumball's mind works when a piece of unaccountable power lands in his orbit. He does not ask whether he should have it. He asks how he can hold it. The show pulls back from this because the show is a comedy and the episode is about Sarah, and the Gumball thread is mostly resolved through chaos rather than through reflection. But the moment is there, and the moment is consistent. In every episode where Gumball has access to a tool that lets him impose his will on other people, he reaches for it. Sometimes the tool is a lie. Sometimes the tool is a virus. Sometimes the tool is a pretend secret society. Sometimes the tool is a magic notebook. The tool changes. The reach does not. There is a specific kind of relationship to power that some people have, and Gumball has it. He does not see other people's preferences as constraints. He sees them as obstacles. And when an obstacle can be overridden, he overrides it. And the show, calmly, lets you watch him do it without ever telling you in words what he just did. The Inquisition is the 44th and final episode of season 6, and the final episode of the series proper. It aired in 2019. It is a strange episode to think about in the context of this video, because it is also, by design, the show's last statement. The plot involves a live-action superintendent who arrives at Elmore Junior High to suck the cartoonish nature out of the students. He turns them into normal humans. He flattens them. The students rebel. Gumball and Darwin are at the front of the rebellion. On the surface, this is a victory. The kids fight for their identity. The cartoon defends itself against the gray adult force trying to standardize it. The thematic reading is clean. But notice again how the rebellion is conducted. Notice how willing Gumball is to escalate. Notice the way the episode openly references the language of historical inquisitions, of trials, of institutional cruelty. The students are being repressed. They respond by becoming the inquisitors of their own institution. There is a line in the show's design where rebellion stops being self-defense and starts being its own kind of authoritarianism, and the Inquisition lives right on that line. And Gumball, the character whose entire psychology has been about insisting on his own version of reality, regardless of what the world says, is the perfect person to lead the charge. The episode resolves itself in a way that lets Gumball be the hero. It is a series finale. It would have been strange to do otherwise. But the show, even in its last hour, cannot quite let the reading be clean. Gumball wins by being more himself, more relentless, more unyielding, more loud than the force that came in to flatten him. That is the same engine the show has been describing for 6 seasons. The engine does not stop. The engine, when pointed at a thing the audience already disliked, becomes heroic. The engine, when pointed at Hector, becomes deadly. The engine, when pointed at Banana Joe, becomes cringe. The engine itself is the same engine in every direction. The show is asking you to notice that. The show is asking you to notice that the thing you are cheering for in the finale is the same thing you are uncomfortable with in the joy and the castle, and the vase and the lie. The show is asking you to sit with the fact that the trait you love about Gumball is the trait that, in any other room, makes him a problem. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There is a question that lives underneath all of this, and the show, to its credit, never quite answers it. The question is whether Gumball Watterson is responsible for what he does. He is 12 years old. He is a cartoon. He lives in a world that bends around him in ways that real worlds do not. The other characters are mostly fine. Hector's mother is not. Mr. Small is not. Banana Joe was not, briefly. But on the whole, the world absorbs the damage. The world is built to absorb the damage. And so the question of responsibility hangs there, unresolved, because the world keeps doing the work of pretending Gumball did not actually break anything that mattered. He did. The show shows you he did. The show simply refuses to put a character on screen to read the moral aloud. This is one of the things that makes The Amazing World of Gumball such a strange piece of children's television. It does not flinch. It does not soften. It does not give you a lesson at the end. It gives you the behavior and the consequence, and then it cuts to credits and lets you decide what to do with it. The vase ends with the ashes gone forever. The castle ends with a parent dead. The apology ends with no apology actually given. The society ends with the entire school in cardboard boxes pretending to be a secret order. The show does not editorialize. The show does not, at any point, have a character look directly into the camera and say that what Gumball just did was wrong. The show just shows you what he did, and then shows you that nobody made him answer for it, and then asks you, quietly, what kind of show that makes this? The answer is that it makes it a more honest show than most. Real life does not editorialize either. Real people who go too far rarely get the kind of comeuppance that fiction usually arranges for them. They keep going. They get older. They run their same plays on bigger and bigger rooms, and the rooms keep finding ways to absorb them, until occasionally, a room cannot, and someone like Hector's mother pays the price for years of accumulated provocation. There is something else worth saying, and this is the part of the analysis that, if you have been on Gumball's side this whole time, you might find hardest. Gumball's worst moments are not betrayals of his character. They are expressions of it. The show is not telling you that Gumball is normally good and occasionally bad. The show is telling you that Gumball is normally Gumball, and that being Gumball at scale with stakes looks like the things this video has been describing. The cleverness, the energy, the willingness to throw himself at any problem, the refusal to be contained by what the world says is possible, the absolute confidence that his version of reality is the right one. Those are the things people love about him. They are also the things that, in the society and the joy and the castle, do the damage. You cannot have one without the other. The show has been telling you that for 10 years. The show has been telling you that the trait you laugh at in the cold open is the trait that, by minute 8, has put a teacher in a hunted corner or a mother in a coffin. They are not separate traits. They are the same trait under different lighting. This is part of why the show is so durable. Most cartoons about a wacky main character are built on a soft contradiction. The character is wild, but the wildness only ever costs the people you do not like. The wildness never has a real bill. The Amazing World of Gumball is not built that way. The wildness has a bill. The bill gets sent. Sometimes it goes to Banana Joe and gets paid in confusion. Sometimes it goes to Mr. Small and gets paid in exile. Sometimes it goes to Hector's mother and gets paid in death. The bill is real. The show keeps showing you the bill. The show simply trusts you to read it without being told. There is a moment in The Stink, near the end, where Mr. Small is standing in the wilderness, having lost the entire structure of his adult identity, and the camera lets you see him in his loss. The camera does not editorialize. The camera does not have Gumball pause and reflect. The camera just shows you a small adult man who has been removed from the world he built because two children decided to make a point. There is no music cue. There is no apology. There is no return to the school where things are made right. The episode ends. Then the next episode begins, with Mr. Small in his usual office as if nothing has changed. The show absorbs the damage by simply not naming it. That is also a kind of telling. That is the show showing you that in Elmore, the system has a near infinite capacity to forget what Gumball has done, and Gumball has a near infinite capacity to count on that forgetting. And the loop between those two facts is what allows him to keep being the way he is, without ever having to become anything else. If you watch the show end to end with this lens, you start to notice that Darwin is the moral architecture that holds Gumball's behavior together. Darwin is the one who flinches. Darwin is the one who suggests, quietly, that the plan might not be a good plan. Darwin is the one who tries to apologize on Gumball's behalf when Gumball cannot. Darwin's role in the show is not just to be the best friend. Darwin's role is to be the conscience that Gumball outsources. Without Darwin, the bills would come faster. Without Darwin, the rooms would notice sooner. Without Darwin, the engine would have nowhere to dump its excess. The show is built so that Darwin absorbs the moral cost of being around someone like Gumball, and absorbs it in a way that lets Gumball never have to grow. That is also a thing the show is showing you without saying it. The cost of being friends with someone who goes too far all the time is that you become the person who has to clean up the floor. Darwin cleans the floor. Darwin keeps cleaning. Darwin does not stop. Aeneas is the version of the conscience that Gumball cannot outsource, because Aeneas will not let him. Aeneas sees through him. Aeneas names the lie, in the lie, almost as soon as it leaves his mouth. Aeneas identifies the bad plan, in the plan, almost as soon as he proposes it. The show keeps positioning her as the one character in his immediate orbit who cannot be flattered or guilted or yelled into compliance. And Gumball's response to her, across the series, is consistently dismissive. He talks over her. He patronizes her. He pretends not to hear what she just said. He does this not because he does not understand her. He does this because he understands her perfectly, and what she is saying, every time, is the thing he most needs not to hear. The show has built into his domestic life the exact figure who could puncture him, and the show has had him develop in real time the exact set of behaviors a person develops to keep that kind of figure from ever quite landing a punch. That is the layer underneath the Going Too Far episodes. That is the architecture that makes the Going Too Far episodes possible. Gumball has, around him, a brother who absorbs cost and a sister who names truth, and he has, in himself, the exact alignment of traits that lets him use the first and ignore the second. The episodes are not aberrations. The episodes are what happens when that architecture meets a world that, for one episode at a time, is not equipped to absorb him. The joy is what happens when the world he meets is the entire school. The castle is what happens when the world he meets is a giant whose nervous system cannot take provocation. The apology is what happens when the world he meets is one banana whose feelings are mildly hurt. The architecture is the same in all three. The output is different because the input is different. The character does not change. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There is a kind of quiet horror in watching the show with this in mind. Not the horror of a villain, the horror of a person who is genuinely, in his own mind, the hero of every story he is in, and who is therefore unreachable. Gumball does not believe he goes too far. Gumball believes he gets pushed too far. Gumball believes he is the one who is constantly being asked to absorb the world's failures, to give him what he is owed. There is a scene in almost every major episode where he says, in some form, that the situation is not his fault. He says it in the vase. He says it in the lie. He says it in the society. He says it in the apology. He says it in the spoiler. The line varies. The function does not. The function is to relocate the source of the problem outside his own choices. The function is to make the bill, when it arrives, somebody else's bill. And the world, most of the time, just lets him hand the bill off. Because the world is tired, and because handing the bill back would require an honest conversation. And the honest conversation is the one thing Gumball is structurally incapable of having. This is why the show is so often described, by careful viewers, as one of the most psychologically realistic cartoons ever made. The realism is not in the visual style. The realism is in this. The realism is in the fact that the show has correctly identified a kind of person, and has correctly identified the way that kind of person moves through the world, and has correctly identified the way the world quietly accommodates that kind of person, and has put all 3 of those observations on screen in 12-minute increments for 10 years. The show never names what it is doing. The show is, in many ways, more honest because it does not name it. Naming it would let you off the hook. The unnamed version makes you do the work. The unnamed version makes you be the one who finally says, out loud, that the kid you have been rooting for is also the kid who has been doing the damage, and that those 2 facts are not separate, and that your affection for him is part of what makes the damage possible. There is one more frame worth offering before this video lands, and it is the frame that, more than any other, defines what kind of character Gumball Watterson actually is. Gumball is not a bully. The show is very careful about that. Tina is a bully. Jamie is a bully. The show has bullies, and it draws them clearly, and Gumball is not them. Gumball is something else. Gumball is the person who, having been on the receiving end of bullying, has decided that he is therefore exempt from being a perpetrator. Gumball is the person whose self-image as a victim is so foundational that it allows him to do anything, to anyone, in any direction, and remain, in his own mind, the underdog. That is a more specific and a more recognizable character than the standard cartoon protagonist. It is not the wild kid. It is not the jerk with a heart of gold. It is the person who has built a moral identity around being wronged, and who therefore reads any pushback against his behavior as further evidence of being wronged, which justifies further behavior, which produces more pushback, and so on. The loop is closed. The loop is self-sealing. The loop is one of the hardest psychological structures to break, because every input gets reinterpreted by the loop itself as confirmation that the loop should keep running. That is what the show is showing you, in episode after episode. That is the unifying read. Gumball is not going too far because he is bad. Gumball is going too far because his entire identity is built around the belief that he is the one being wronged. And so any escalation in any direction feels, from inside his head, like a proportionate response to a world that is constantly failing him. The society fits, the lie fits, the plan fits, the vase fits, the apology fits, the joy fits, the castle fits, the spoiler fits, the stink fits, the shippening fits, the Inquisition fits. They are not separate stories. They are the same story, told 11 different ways, with the engine in slightly different configurations each time. The show is not a sketch comedy. The show is a long, careful, patient portrait of a particular kind of person. And the portrait happens to be funny because the person happens to be a cartoon cat in a town where the rules of physics and consequence are flexible enough to make the damage absorbable. In a town with normal rules, Gumball would not be a comedy character. He would be a tragedy. There is a version of Gumball that the show has never shown you directly, and that version is the version of him as an adult. The show ends when he is 12. The show ends before the loop has had time to compound. But you can see the shape of the adult in the structure of the child. You can see what kind of coworker he would be. You can see what kind of partner he would be. You can see what kind of parent. The show does not put it on screen. The show does not need to. The show has spent 10 years showing you the loop in motion. And once you can see the loop, the rest of the trajectory writes itself. The society at 22 is harassment. The lie at 30 is fraud. The plan at 35 is paranoia. The joy at 40 is an ideology. The castle at 50 is a person walking away from the funeral of someone they pushed too hard, telling themselves it was not their fault. The show is not pretending these are not the natural extensions. The show is, in fact, by ending when Gumball is 12, performing one last act of mercy on the character. It lets him stop being looked at before the looking gets unbearable. And yet, the other thing the show keeps showing you is that Gumball loves his family, not in the way the loop would predict, not in the way that would let him use them as instruments. He loves them in the way that, when the chips are down, he protects them. He loves them in the way that, when Aeneas is in danger, he abandons every other priority. He loves them in the way that, when his mother is exhausted, he tries, in his clumsy way, to help. The loop does not erase the love. The love does not erase the loop. They sit next to each other inside the same character, and the show, with extraordinary discipline, refuses to choose between them. He is the one who lies to his sister about a movie until the family has to live in a basement. He is also the one who, in other episodes, would die for her. Both things are true. Neither cancels the other. That is the part of Gumball Watterson that the Going Too Far episodes do not get to take away from him. He goes too far. He also loves. The show holds both of those facts in the same hand and does not let either of them go. And that is, in the end, why the Going Too Far episodes hit as hard as they do. They are not the story of a bad person doing bad things. They are the story of a person who loves the people he hurts, and who hurts them anyway, and who cannot stop the engine, and who would not know how to stop the engine even if he wanted to, and who, when he is at his best, is also, in the same breath, capable of the worst things the show has ever put on screen. The image to leave on is from the society. It is the lights coming up. It is the room full of cardboard boxes. It is Gumball, beaming, believing he was right all along. It is the entire community of people he has spent 12 minutes destroying, smiling weakly at him, because they have decided that the path of least resistance is to let him have his win. He does not see them. He sees only the version of the story in which he was vindicated. He walks out of that room with his head higher than he came in. The room exhales when the door closes. Nothing about him has changed. Nothing about him will change. That is the whole story. That is every episode this video has been about, distilled into a single shot. He goes too far. The world bends. He believes the bending is proof he was never too far at all. And then he goes home, and he eats dinner, and he loves his family, and he wakes up in the morning, and he does it again. There is a useful exercise that the show invites without ever assigning. Pick any episode where Gumball gets what he wants. Then ask, in the plainest possible language, what the person across from him paid for that to happen. The society costs the entire student body and faculty an afternoon of public humiliation in cardboard boxes. The lie costs Aeneas her sense of trust in her brother, costs Nicole and Richard a night in a fake basement, costs Darwin one more entry in the long ledger of times he has agreed to be dragged into something he knew was wrong. The vase costs Granny Jojo the ashes of her python, the only physical remnant of a creature she loved, and the cost is permanent because ashes do not regenerate. The castle costs Hector his mother, and the entire town of Elmore one of its quiet pillars. The apology costs Banana Joe the experience of actually being apologized to, which is its own kind of small theft, the theft of a moment that should have happened and did not. The spoiler costs every spoiler-prone resident of the town an afternoon of being terrorized over a movie. The stink costs Mr. Small his career and his sanity and his standing in the community. The joy costs Miss Simeon her bodily autonomy, costs the school its function for an entire day, and costs the audience, if the audience is paying attention, the comfortable belief that mob behavior is something other people do. Add those up. Sit with the totals. The bills are not small. The bills are not abstract. They are concrete, episode-specific, character-specific costs, paid by named individuals, in service of a single boy getting his way. And the boy, in every case, walks away convinced he was the protagonist of a story that ended well. That is a strong word, protagonist, but it is the right word. Gumball is the protagonist of a show in which he is also, by any honest accounting, the antagonist of most of the episodes he stars in. The show, in its quiet way, is asking you to hold both of those facts at once. The protagonist is the antagonist. The hero is the villain. The boy you root for is the boy whose ledger keeps growing and who never sees the ledger because nobody ever shows it to him. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There is a smaller pattern inside the larger pattern that is worth naming, because it shows up in almost every episode the show ever produced, and once you see it, you cannot stop seeing it. The pattern is the moment in any given episode where Gumball has, technically, the option to stop. There is always such a moment. There is a beat, somewhere around the middle of any Going Too Far episode, where the situation has not yet collapsed, where the damage is still recoverable, where a sentence as simple as "I am sorry," or a question as simple as "What do you actually want?" would unlock the entire problem and let everyone go home. Watch for that beat in any of these episodes. It is always there. The show puts it there on purpose, and in every case, Gumball does not take it. He sees the door, he looks at the door, he chooses not to walk through it, and then the camera moves on, and the situation gets worse, and by the time anyone references that earlier door, it has been sealed. In The Lie, the door is the moment Aeneas asks him, gently, why he does not want her to see the movie. He could tell her, the truth is small. The truth is that he himself wanted to see it first, alone, and he is embarrassed about that. The truth would dissolve the entire premise of the episode in 2 sentences. He does not say it. The door closes. In the vase, The door is the moment Nicole begins to scream that she needs the vase back. He could pause. He could check. He could verify before sending the pieces away that he has correctly understood what she is asking. He does not pause. The door closes. In the apology, the door is the first moment after the laughter, the moment when Banana Joe's face falls, the moment when a normal child would say, automatically, that they did not mean it. He does not say it. The door closes. In the society, the door is the moment Darwin tells him, plainly, that there is no secret society and that he is becoming the problem. He could believe his brother. He has every reason to. He does not. The door closes. In the castle, the door is the moment Hector tells him, in his small voice, that this is a place he should not be. He could turn around. He does not. The door closes. The doors are not invisible. The show frames them. The show lights them. The show, in some cases, has a character literally point at them. They are not subtle. The show's writers want you to see them, because the show's writers want you to understand that going too far is not something that happens to Gumball. Going too far is something Gumball chooses, in real time, in front of you, with full information, multiple times per episode. The choice is the story. The choice is what makes him a character, rather than a victim of circumstance. The show is too disciplined to let him off that hook. He could have stopped. He did not stop. The fact that the consequences are sometimes catastrophic and sometimes merely awkward is a function of the world, not of him. He brings the same refusal to every door, every time. There is a specific kind of pain in watching this pattern across a long series, because the pattern does not develop. It does not deepen. It does not get learned from. The Gumball who refuses the door in Season 1 is the same Gumball who refuses the door in Season 6. The world around him changes. The animation evolves. The supporting cast grows. The stakes get higher. He does not change. That is, in some sense, the saddest thing the show is willing to put on screen. Most television about a flawed protagonist is built around the idea that the protagonist will eventually grow. They will see the pattern. They will, at some point, take a different door. The Amazing World of Gumball is not built that way. It is built around the idea that some people, structurally, do not grow, and that the people around them have to build their lives in accommodation with that fact. Darwin builds. Aeneas builds. Nicole builds. Richard, in his way, builds. Gumball does not build. Gumball is the immovable object around which the rest of the family has to design their movements. And the show, with extraordinary patience, never asks Gumball to be otherwise. The show simply documents what it is like to live next to him. There is a moment in the Inquisition that returns to this. The series finale, in its own way, is the show's last attempt to give Gumball a moment of reflection. Superintendent Evil, the live-action figure who has come to flatten Elmore, is, on one reading, a metaphor for adulthood. He is a metaphor for the gray world that arrives at the end of cartoonhood. He is a metaphor for the version of life in which the rules apply to you and the consequences land where they were aimed. The episode's choice to have Gumball fight him and to let Gumball win is the show's choice to let the cartoon survive a little longer. But notice what wins. Notice what energy is required to win. The thing that defeats the gray adult force is the same engine that, in the castle, killed Hector's mother. The show, even at the last possible moment, refuses to let you separate the trait from its costs. The trait that saves the school is the trait that has been doing the damage all along. They are the same trait. The show is asking you to notice that the cost of preserving Gumball's wildness is everything you saw across the previous 6 seasons. And the show is asking you to make a decision about whether the trade was worth it. The show does not make the decision for you. The show simply hands you the ledger and asks you to read. The joy, watched again with this frame, becomes one of the most uncomfortable episodes in the show's run. The first time you watch it, the comedy is the dominant frame. The infected are happy. The uninfected are grim. The chase is funny. The sound design is funny. Miss Simeon, who you have spent the previous 79 episodes disliking, is the target, and her targeting feels like satisfying comeuppance for the small cruelties she has inflicted on Gumball and his classmates. The episode invites you to laugh, and you do laugh the first time, but then you watch it again after thinking about the society, and the chase looks different. You notice that the infected do not stop. You notice that they do not consider, even for a second, that the person they are chasing has the right to refuse what they are offering. You notice that the fact that what they are offering is happiness does not change the structure of what is happening. It is, structurally, an assault. It is a group of people deciding that another person's continued possession of her own internal state is a problem to be solved, and then physically pursuing her to solve it. The fact that the solution feels good to the perpetrators does not change what it is. The show knows this. The show is showing you this. The show is asking you, gently, to notice that the architecture of joy can be the architecture of force, and that the line between liberation and conquest is sometimes nothing more than the consent of the person being liberated. That is a lot of weight for a 12-minute children's cartoon to carry, and it is the kind of weight the Amazing World of Gumball carried routinely without ever drawing attention to the fact that it was carrying it. The show refused, throughout its entire run, to flag its own depth. It made you do the work. It trusted you to do the work. And the work, when you do it, keeps producing the same conclusion in episode after episode with different costumes on the same machine. The show is not about a wacky cat. The show is about the way force moves through a community when the force is wearing a sweet face and is small enough that the community feels embarrassed to be afraid of it. Gumball is small. Gumball is sweet. Gumball is funny. Gumball is also, in his refusal to take the door, a force. And the show keeps showing you what force does to the people who are caught in its path. There is a way of reading the show in which the side characters are the real subject. The side characters are the ones the force lands on. Banana Joe absorbs the force in The Apology, and, in a smaller way, in many other episodes, where his name or his fruitness becomes the subject of comedy that he himself did not consent to. Tobias absorbs the force in any number of episodes where Gumball's competition with him tilts into something darker. Penny absorbs the force in the long, complicated, often beautiful arc of being the romantic interest of a boy who is not, by any objective measure, a safe romantic interest. Nicole absorbs the force at home. Aeneas absorbs the force at home. Mr. Small absorbs the force in the stink. Hector and his mother absorb the force in the castle. Miss Simeon absorbs the force in the joy. The list goes on. Make the list yourself. It is one of the most useful things you can do as a viewer of the show. The list is long. The list keeps growing. And the list, taken together, is the story the show is telling underneath the comedy. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There is one episode that is worth circling back to, because it sits oddly in this analysis and refuses to fit cleanly. The spoiler is, on its surface, the lightest of the episodes this video has been about. Nobody dies. Nobody loses a career. Nobody loses a python's ashes. The stakes, in any literal sense, are tiny. A movie is going to be spoiled. That is the whole problem. And yet, watching the spoiler back with everything else in mind, the lightness becomes part of the point. The spoiler is the episode that shows you that Gumball does not need real stakes to deploy maximum force. The spoiler is the proof that the engine runs on whatever fuel is available, and that when no real fuel is available, imaginary fuel works just as well. The episode has Gumball threatening, intimidating, manipulating, and going to wild lengths, all in defense of something that has not happened yet, that he has not paid for, that nobody owes him, and that the world's failure to provide on his preferred timeline he treats as an existential injury. The spoiler is the show telling you that the engine does not need a reason. The engine has its own reason. The engine wants to run, and it will manufacture justifications as needed, and the justifications are not the source of the running. The running is the source of itself. This is one of the harder things to accept about Gumball as a character. Most cartoon protagonists who go too far are framed as having a reason. Their backstory provides the engine. Their trauma provides the engine. Their misunderstanding of the situation provides the engine. The engine is, in those shows, somebody else's fault. And once the engine is properly contextualized, the protagonist can be exonerated. Gumball does not get that frame. The show refuses to give it to him. The show, when it shows you the engine, does not show you a tragic origin for it. The show shows you a kid in a kitchen, surrounded by a family that loves him, in a town that mostly accommodates him, with a brother who would die for him, and a sister who would die for him, and parents who, in their messy way, would die for him. There is no founding wound in the show that the engine grows out of. The engine just is. It is part of Gumball, the way blue fur is part of Gumball. He did not choose it. He cannot remove it. He can, in moments, suppress it. He never, in any episode the show ever produced, masters it. That refusal to give him an excuse is, in its way, the show's most respectful gesture toward him. The show is treating him like a real person rather than a parable. Real people do not always have a clean origin for the worst things they do. Real people sometimes just are the way they are, and the work of being around them is the work of accommodating that fact rather than the work of curing it. The show puts that work on the family. The show puts that work on Darwin. The show puts that work on the entire town of Elmore. And the show, by refusing to let Gumball be cured by any single therapeutic insight, lets him be the kind of character that fiction usually flinches from. The kind of character who is not a project. The kind of character who is not a redemption arc. The kind of character whose fundamental shape is not going to change, and whom the people around him have to love anyway, because the love is also part of who he is. And the love does not negotiate with the engine, but lives next to it. There is a sequence near the end of the vase that is worth slowing down on. The vase is gone. The ashes are gone. Nicole has found out. The kids are caught. And the show, in the last minute, does something that, on a first watch, you might miss. Gumball does not apologize. Gumball, in keeping with his entire character, cannot apologize. But the show puts on screen, in his face, in his body language, the smallest acknowledgement that he understands what he has done. It is not stated. There is no monologue. There is no music cue. It is just a beat, a held shot, a flicker. And then the episode moves on. The flicker is the most the show ever gives you of Gumball seeing himself clearly. It is brief. It is unverbalized. It is, by the next episode, gone. But the show puts it there, every once in a while, in the vase, and in a few other episodes, just enough to tell you that the engine is not all there is. There is a small, quiet, almost buried part of him that does see, that does know, that does understand. The part that almost reaches for the door. The part that, in the next episode, will not reach for it again. That part is what makes the going too far episodes hurt rather than just amuse. If Gumball were unaware, the episodes would be slapstick. They would be funny in the way that Looney Tunes are funny. The character does not know. The character cannot know. The audience laughs because the character's blindness is the joke. But Gumball is not blind. Gumball, in his quietest beats, sees. Gumball, in his quietest beats, knows. And Gumball, knowing, chooses anyway. That is what makes the episodes land. That is what makes them tragic, in the same breath that they are comic. The character is not the joke. The character is the choice. And the choice, episode after episode, is the same choice, made by someone who could, in theory, have made a different one. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There is a question that comes up in any extended discussion of Gumball, and the question is whether the writers liked their main character. The answer, watching the show with care, is that they loved him. The show is a love letter. The show is built with the kind of attention to detail that only love produces. But the love is not blind. The love is the love a parent has for a difficult child. The love that knows exactly what the child is, and that loves the child anyway, and that refuses to pretend the child is something different in order to make the love easier to perform. The show's affection for Gumball is the affection of a witness who has seen the whole pattern and has not flinched from it. The show is not interested in selling you a false version of him. The show is interested in showing you the real version, with all of its costs, and trusting you to find your own affection for him on the other side of the seeing. That is a much harder kind of love than the cartoon version. That is the kind of love that, when you finally feel it, feels permanent, because it was earned by looking and not by averting the eyes. This is part of why the show's ending lands as hard as it does. The Inquisition, for all its noise and its rebellion and its triumph, is also, in a quieter register, the show saying goodbye to a kid that the show has spent 10 years describing with painful honesty. The goodbye is not sentimental. The goodbye does not pretend that the kid has grown. The goodbye does not promise that the kid will be different in some imagined adulthood. The goodbye just lets him be himself one more time, at full intensity, and then closes the door. Whatever Gumball does after the camera turns off, the show is no longer obligated to document. The show has done its work. The work was the documentation. The documentation is the show. And the documentation, watched all the way through, is one of the most thorough portraits of a particular kind of person that any cartoon in any era has ever produced. There is one more episode that is worth bringing in because it complicates the analysis in a useful way. And the complication is part of why the show is great. The plan, which this video has already touched on, has a coda. After the family discovers that Daniel Leonard is a brand of cosmetics, after the entire fantasy of the kidnapping plot has collapsed, after Gumball has spent an entire afternoon constructing a war against an enemy that did not exist, the family does not, in fact, sit him down and have a conversation about what he just did. The episode ends. The next episode begins. And the show, in its silence, is making a point. The point is not that Gumball got away with it. The point is that the family, by this point in the run, has made an unspoken decision that conversations like that are not going to change anything. The family has done the cost benefit. The family has decided that the cost of trying to correct Gumball's behavior is higher than the cost of absorbing it. The family has, in effect, chosen to live with the engine rather than to fight it. That is not laziness on the part of the writers. That is a deeply realistic depiction of how families with a member like Gumball actually behave. The conversations do not happen because the conversations have been tried in the past, and the conversations did not work. And the energy required for the next conversation is energy the family no longer has. The show, by simply not having the conversation, is showing you the family's exhaustion. The show is showing you what years of accommodation looks like. The show is showing you the way a household reorganizes itself around a personality that cannot be moved. Nicole, in particular, carries this exhaustion. Watch her in any of the cleanup scenes. Watch the way she does not raise her voice as much as you might expect. Watch the way her anger, in the moments where it does come out, is the anger of someone who has been having the same fight for 10 years and has stopped expecting the fight to go anywhere different. Nicole is not weak. The show is, in many ways, a long argument for Nicole as one of the strongest characters on television. But Nicole is tired. The tiredness is part of the portrait, and the tiredness has a source. The source is at the breakfast table every morning, eating cereal, narrating his own version of yesterday's events. And the source is the boy she loves. And the source is also the boy whose engine she has spent her entire adult life trying to absorb without being destroyed by it. This is the part of the analysis that, if you have a Gumball Watterson in your own life, will land hardest. You know this person. You know this engine. You know this exhaustion. The show is not making it up. The show has correctly described something that exists. There are people in the world whose default mode of engagement is the engine, and there are people in the world who love them, and the love does not stop the engine, and the engine does not erase the love. The show, by putting both of those facts on screen at the same time, is doing a kind of public service that most cartoons do not even attempt. It is letting the people who live with this kind of love know that they are not alone in living with it. That is not a small thing for a show about a blue cat to do. That is, in fact, one of the most generous things a show like this has ever done. There is something the show does in its quieter moments, and the something is worth naming, because it is the thing that, in the end, makes all of this analysis bearable. Every once in a while, in between the going too far episodes, the show gives you a small, careful, almost throwaway scene of Gumball being decent. Not heroic, not transformed, just decent. He notices that Darwin is upset. He pauses what he's doing. He sits down next to him. He listens. He says something useful. The scene ends. The show moves on. There is no music cue. There is no marker that anything has shifted. But the scene happened, and the scene is part of who he is. And the scene is the show telling you that the engine is not the totality. The engine is loud. The engine is most of what gets airtime. But underneath the engine, in the spaces between the episodes, there is a kid who sometimes does the right thing without being asked, without performing it, without expecting credit. The kid is small. The kid is rare. The kid is real. And the kid is the reason the going too far episodes hurt. Because the going too far episodes are not what Gumball is. They are what Gumball does. And the gap between what he is and what he does is the gap that the show, episode after episode, asks you to sit with. That gap is, in some ways, the central gap of the show. It is the gap between intention and action. It is the gap between the person you are when nobody is watching and the person you become when the engine kicks in. It is the gap that, for most people, defines the moral content of an entire life. The show takes that gap seriously. The show does not pretend the gap can be closed by a montage, or a heart-to-heart, or a single meaningful look. The show treats the gap as a permanent feature of its main character, and the show treats the work of loving someone across that gap as the actual subject of the entire series. That is a lot to do in 12 minutes, twice a week, on a children's network. The fact that it did it, and did it consistently, and did it with humor that never sold the seriousness short, is the reason the show will keep being rewatched for decades, and the reason that videos like this one will keep being made about it, and the reason that when you ask any honest fan of the show what they really think of Gumball Watterson, the answer is always more complicated than the answer they expected to give. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There is one final thread to pull, and the thread is the one that ties all of this analysis together. The thread is Gumball's relationship to the truth. Across every episode this video has been about, the consistent feature is not cruelty. Cruelty is a symptom. The consistent feature is a particular, very specific, very damaging relationship to what is true. Gumball does not lie because he wants to deceive. Gumball lies because, for him, the truth is whatever supports the version of events that lets him stay the protagonist of his own story. If the actual facts conflict with that version, the actual facts are the problem. The actual facts must be reshaped, or hidden, or argued away, or replaced with a more convenient fiction. The lie is the cleanest example of this, because the lie is right there in the title, but the same operation is happening in every other episode. The society replaces the actual fact that Gumball did not get a part in the play with the fiction that a secret cabal is holding him back. The plan replaces the actual fact that a cosmetics brand sent his mother a marketing letter with the fiction that a man is trying to steal her. The vase replaces the actual fact that Gumball threw away ashes with the fiction that the situation was somehow not his to manage. The apology replaces the actual fact that Gumball laughed at someone's name with the fiction that the laughter did not really hurt and was being overreacted to. In every case, the move is the same. Take the fact, reshape it, live in the reshape. That is not a small thing to do, repeatedly, for 10 years. It is, in fact, a description of how a particular kind of person constructs a life that they can survive inside of. They do not survive by changing themselves. They survive by changing the description of themselves. They edit the world rather than edit the self. And they get good at it because they have to, because the alternative is the unbearable experience of being the kind of person who does the things they do. Gumball is good at the editing. Gumball is excellent at the editing. The show, by spending so much screen time inside his head, has shown you, in granular detail, how the editing works. You have watched him do it. You have watched him do it in front of his family. You have watched him do it in front of Penny. You have watched him do it in front of strangers. You have watched him do it in front of mirrors. The editing is the air he breathes. The editing is what makes the engine sustainable. Without the editing, the engine would have to confront its own outputs, and the confrontation would either stop the engine or destroy the person running it. This is why the apology is so structurally impossible for him. An apology is not editable. An apology is, by definition, the moment where you accept the unedited version of the facts and then say, in your own voice, that the unedited version is what happened and that you are responsible for it. There is no rewrite available inside an apology. The apology is the door that closes the editor. And the editor, in Gumball, is so central to his survival that closing it would feel like dying. It is not that he is too proud to apologize. It is that the apology would unmake the entire scaffolding he uses to be a person. He cannot afford it. The cost is too high. He would rather construct any other arrangement, no matter how absurd, no matter how exhausting for the people around him, no matter how damaging in the long run, than pay the apology cost. The apology, the episode, is the show's careful documentation of exactly this. The episode is 12 minutes of a person trying every possible alternative to the one thing that would actually work, because the one thing that would actually work is the one thing his entire psychology is structured to prevent. And the show, with its characteristic refusal to editorialize, simply lets you watch. The show does not have Banana Joe deliver a closing monologue about the importance of apologies. The show does not have Nicole sit Gumball down and explain it to him. The show does not put a moral on the screen in a chyron. The show just lets the episode end, with the apology never having been said. And then it cuts to credits, and then the next episode begins. And the next episode does not reference the failed apology. And the failed apology becomes one more entry in the long, unspoken ledger of things Gumball has not done that he should have done. The ledger keeps growing. The show, by keeping the ledger off screen, makes you do the math yourself. And once you have done the math, once you have actually counted, the affection for the character takes on a different texture. You do not stop loving him. The show has been too careful for that. But the loving becomes the kind of loving that knows what it is loving, and that does not pretend the costs do not exist, and that has made peace with the engine without surrendering to it. That is, in the end, what the show is teaching. It is teaching the particular skill of loving a person whose pattern you can see clearly, whose pattern you cannot change, and whose presence in your life you would not give up, even though the presence has costs. That is a skill most adults need, and most adults have to learn the hard way. The show, by spending 10 years on it, has provided a kind of training course. The training course is disguised as a comedy. The training course features a blue cat. The training course contains an episode in which a giant accidentally kills his mother. The training course is, by any measure, one of the most thorough courses on this subject ever produced for a general audience. And the audience, mostly, did not realize they were taking the course. They thought they were watching a kids' show. The kids' show, all along, was teaching them how to live next to someone who goes too far, and how to keep loving that person, and how to not become that person themselves. There is a final image that the show, in its run, returns to several times in different costumes. The image is the Watterson family at the dinner table. The image is the four of them, plus Richard, sitting and eating, in the kitchen, in the small house, in the small town. There has just been an incident. The incident is not always discussed at the table. The incident sometimes is. Either way, the family eats. The family passes the food. The family asks each other how their day was. The family contains, at all times, the engine. The engine is sitting at the table. The engine is eating. The engine is, in this moment, quiet. The other members of the family know that the quiet is temporary. They know that tomorrow the engine will start again, and they will once again be required to absorb whatever the engine produces. They eat anyway. They love anyway. They will, in the next episode, be hurt by him again, and they will, in the next episode, forgive him again, and the cycle will continue, because the cycle is the shape of being his family, and the shape is not going to change. That image is the show. That image is what the show is about. The going too far episodes are the loud version of it. The dinner table is the quiet version. Both are true. Both are the show. And the show, by holding both at once, by refusing to choose between the loud and the quiet, by refusing to let the loud cancel the quiet or the quiet absolve the loud, has produced something that is, on its merits, one of the great pieces of children's television of the last 20 years. The greatness is not in the visual style, though the visual style is remarkable. The greatness is not in the jokes, though the jokes are genuinely funny. The greatness is in the honesty. The show looked, for 10 years, at a particular kind of person, and described that person with an accuracy that most adult drama does not achieve. The show did this without flinching, without sentimentalizing, without pretending the costs were lower than they were, and without pretending the love was less than it was. That is a hard balance to hold. Most shows fail at it. The Amazing World of Gumball did not fail at it. The Amazing World of Gumball, episode by episode, scene by scene, beat by beat, held the balance. And Gumball Watterson, at the center of all of it, kept going too far. He went too far in the society. He went too far in the lie. He went too far in the plan. He went too far in the vase. He went too far in the apology. He went too far in the joy. He went too far in the castle. He went too far in the spoiler. He went too far in the stink. He went too far in the shippening. He went too far in the Inquisition. He went too far in dozens of smaller episodes that this video did not have time to cover. He went too far in ways the audience laughed at, and in ways the audience squirmed at. He went too far in ways that ended in cardboard boxes, and in ways that ended in funerals. He went too far constantly, consistently, predictably, across every season of his existence. And the show, with extraordinary care, made sure you saw it. made sure you did not look away, made sure you understood that the going too far was not separate from the loving, was not separate from the laughing, was not separate from the moments of decency that occasionally surfaced and then sank again. The going too far was part of him. The going too far was him. The going too far was the engine. And the engine was the show. And the show was, in the end, a portrait of an engine, drawn with so much affection that you could almost forgive yourself for forgetting, briefly, that the engine had a cost. The cost was real. The cost was always real. The show told you. The show kept telling you. This video was an attempt to add up what the show told you, in one place, in one sitting, with the volume turned down low enough that you could actually hear it. If you have made it this far, you have heard it. If you have made it this far, you know what the engine looks like. You know what it does. You know who pays for it. You know why the show keeps coming back to it. You know why the show, even at its finale, refused to give Gumball the kind of clean redemption that would have let everybody go home easy. The show was not interested in easy. The show was interested in true. And the truth is that some people go too far, and the going too far is not a glitch in their character. The going too far is the character. And the people around them love them anyway. And the loving is also true. And both truths sit at the dinner table every night. In the small kitchen, in the small house, in the small town, and the camera holds on them, and the credits roll. There is something else worth saying before this video lands, and it is the part of the analysis that often gets skipped, because it is the most uncomfortable part. Gumball Watterson is 12. He is a child. The going too far episodes are the going too far episodes of a child. And when an adult watches a child do these things, the natural response is to want to assign blame somewhere outside the child, because children are not supposed to be capable of the kind of damage these episodes describe. So the eye looks for someone else to hold responsible. The eye looks at Richard, who is, in many ways, the show's portrait of an absent functional adult. The eye looks at Nicole, whose exhaustion is so well rendered that it is sometimes mistaken for inattentiveness. The eye looks at the school, which fails to discipline him, and the town, which fails to contain him, and the entire structure of Elmore, which seems designed to absorb him rather than to correct him. The eye looks for a parent in the system, and the eye keeps not finding one. And so the eye concludes that the going too far is the system's fault rather than the child's. The show is too careful to let that read stand. The show keeps showing you that Gumball, in the moments when he is going too far, is not a child being failed by adults. He is a child making choices. The choices are sometimes informed by bad models. The choices are sometimes enabled by lazy supervision. The choices are sometimes amplified by a town with strange rules. But the choices are his. The show, by spending so much screen time inside his decision-making, makes the choices visible. You see him choose the lie. You see him choose the door not taken. You see him choose to keep going when stopping would have been free. The choices are not buried under the cartoon framing. The choices are the cartoon framing. And the show, by laying them out so plainly, is asking you to take them seriously, even though the person making them is small and blue and 12. This is a hard thing to do as a viewer. It is hard to look at a child character and say, plainly, that the child is responsible for what the child has done. The instinct is to soften, to contextualize, to find the developmental excuse. The Amazing World of Gumball does not give you the excuse. The Amazing World of Gumball treats Gumball, in his decision-making, as a moral agent, with the same weight that an adult character would carry. And the show does this without ever explicitly saying so. The show does it through the structure. The show does it through the editing. The show does it through the way the camera lingers, in the vase, on his face, after the ashes are gone. The lingering is not the lingering of a camera that has found a lovable rascal. The lingering is the lingering of a camera that has found a person, and that wants you to see the person clearly before the moment passes. There is a kind of viewer who, presented with this kind of analysis, will push back. They will say that this is reading too much into a children's cartoon. They will say that the show is light, that the show is silly, that the show is about a blue cat doing wacky things, and that loading the cat with this kind of moral weight is the kind of thing that humorless adults do to ruin perfectly good children's media. There is a real version of that argument, and the version is worth taking seriously. The show is funny. The show is silly. The show is, on most days, a perfectly enjoyable piece of light entertainment that you can put on in the background and laugh at without having to think about anything. The show does not require this kind of analysis. The show is not begging for it. The show, if anything, is happy to be enjoyed at the surface level and would not be embarrassed to be loved purely as comedy. But the show is also doing the deeper work. The show is also building the engine. The show is also showing you, episode after episode, what the engine produces. And one of the genuinely great things about the show is that it does not require you to do the deeper read in order to enjoy it. You can watch the show as comedy, and the show works as comedy. You can watch the show as character study, and the show works as character study. The two readings do not interfere with each other. The two readings, in fact, support each other. The comedy is funnier when you see the engine running underneath it. The character study is more bearable when you can also laugh at the surface. The show, by being designed to work at both levels at once, has produced something that almost no other piece of children's animation has managed to produce. It has produced a portrait that you can ignore, that you can casually enjoy, or that you can stare into for a long time, depending on what you bring to the screen. This video is the staring into version. This video is what happens when you decide, for 2 hours, to take the Going Too Far episodes seriously and to ask what they add up to. The answer, if you have followed this far, is that they add up to a portrait. The portrait is of a particular kind of person. The portrait is detailed and patient and unflinching. The portrait is, at the same time, affectionate, because the people who made it loved their subject. The portrait does not absolve. The portrait does not condemn. The portrait simply describes, with extraordinary accuracy, what it is like to be Gumball Watterson, and what it is like to be near him, and what it is like to love him, and what it is like to pay the cost of loving him. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There is a small recurring detail in the show that takes on weight once you have noticed the pattern, and the detail is the way Gumball reacts in the moment, immediately after he gets caught. Watch any episode where someone confronts him about something he did. Watch the first half second of his face. There is, almost always, a flicker. The flicker is the moment before the editor kicks in. The flicker is the moment when the unedited fact briefly visits his face before being overwritten. The flicker is sometimes shame. The flicker is sometimes fear. The flicker is sometimes a kind of small grief. And then the flicker passes, and the editor takes over, and the face he turns toward the person confronting him is the face that has already begun to construct the alternative explanation. The flicker is the part of him that knows. The face that follows is the part of him that survives the knowing. The show is interested in the flicker. The show keeps putting it on screen. The show could have skipped it. Most cartoons do skip it. Most cartoons cut directly from the catching to the deflection, because the flicker is small and easy to miss and does not contribute to the comic timing. The Amazing World of Gumball includes the flicker because the show is, at heart, about the gap between the flicker and the deflection. The show is about the moral content of that gap. The show is asking you, every time it puts the flicker on screen, to notice that the next thing Gumball says is not the thing the flicker would have said. The flicker would have said the truth. The deflection says something else. The choice between them is the choice that defines who Gumball is, and the show, by showing you both, makes the choice visible without ever needing to comment on it. That is, in some ways, the show's most sophisticated piece of craft. The flicker is too small to be funny. The flicker is too short to support a moral lesson. The flicker is, in conventional television terms, useless. And the show keeps putting it in anyway, because the show, in its quietest design decisions, has decided that the flicker is the point. The flicker is the part that proves that Gumball knows. Without the flicker, the going too far would be the going too far of an oblivious child. With the flicker, the going too far is the going too far of someone who saw the truth briefly and then chose to hide it. The choice is the moral fact. The flicker is the evidence that the choice was made. The show, by including the evidence, makes the morality real. And by making the morality real, makes the comedy load-bearing rather than decorative. The castle is the cleanest example of the flicker, because the stakes are the highest and the flicker is the longest. After Hector loses control, after his mother dies, after the dust settles and the camera finds Gumball, there is a held shot. The held shot is longer than it needs to be. The held shot is the show, deliberately not cutting away. The held shot is asking you to look at his face. His face is doing something. His face is processing the size of what just happened. The face is, briefly, the face of someone who understands that he has just been responsible for something he cannot fix. And then the show moves on. The show does not, in the next episode, return to the face. The show does not have any character ask Gumball about it. The show simply lets the face exist in that one shot and trusts you to remember it. You remember it. You cannot help remembering it. The face is one of the quietest, most damning things the show ever put on screen, and the show, by refusing to underline it, made it impossible to forget. This is part of why a video like this one is possible. The show has done the work. The show has put the flickers and the held shots and the unspoken acknowledgements into the run, in places where you can find them if you look. The video is just an exercise in collecting what the show has already placed. The video is not adding moral weight to the show. The video is, instead, surfacing the moral weight that the show was carrying all along, in shots that most viewers, on first watch, did not slow down to notice. The slowness is the gift. The slowness is what the sleep listening format makes possible. The slowness lets you notice what the running speed of regular viewing would have hidden. And the noticing, accumulated over 2 hours, becomes the read that this video has been building toward. The show is more than its surface. Always was, always will be. There is an episode that this video has not named yet, and that episode is The Pressure, which was mentioned earlier as a kind of foundation document, but which deserves a second visit now that the rest of the analysis is in place. The Pressure aired on June 6th, 2011. It is the 9th episode of the first season. It is, on its surface, an episode about Masami trying to impress some older girls by pretending Darwin is her boyfriend. The romantic plot is hers. The misadventure is hers. Gumball's role in the episode is mostly to react to what is happening to Darwin and to the social situation around them. But pay attention to a smaller thread that runs through the episode. Pay attention to the way Gumball, even in this very early episode, defaults to the strategies he will use for the rest of the show's run. He lies when convenient. He avoids responsibility when possible. He invents an alternative explanation when the available one would put him in a less flattering light. The Pressure is not an episode about Gumball going too far. The Pressure is an episode in which the muscles for going too far are visible in their early form before the show had fully developed them. The episode is the prequel to every later catastrophe. The episode is the show, in Season 1, quietly drawing the blueprint that will, by Season 3, be built into a tower that nearly takes out the entire town. That is part of what makes the show a complete work rather than a collection of episodes. The show, viewed from above, has an arc. The arc is not the arc of Gumball changing. The arc is the arc of the engine being revealed. Season 1 shows you the engine in low gear. Season 2 shows you the engine warming up. Season 3 shows you the engine at full speed, in the society and the lie and the joy. Season 5 shows you the engine in mature form, in the vase. Season 6 shows you the engine in collision with adulthood, in the Inquisition. The arc is not about growth. The arc is about visibility. The engine becomes more visible to the audience as the show progresses, even though the engine itself is the same engine the entire time. By the time you reach the Inquisition, you have been watching the same engine for 10 years, and you can see it clearly, and you can see what it produces, and you can decide for yourself how you feel about the kid who has been running it. That kind of long-form character work is rare in any medium and almost unheard of in children's animation. Children's animation is mostly built on the assumption that the audience is not going to track the character across years, that the audience is going to dip in and out, that the audience needs each episode to be self-contained and forgiving. The Amazing World of Gumball makes a different bet. The show bets that some viewers will track the character. The show bets that some viewers will, in fact, watch the show end to end, multiple times, across years, and that those viewers will see the engine in a way that the casual viewer will not. The show is built to reward that kind of attention, without punishing the absence of it. The casual viewer gets a funny show. The careful viewer gets a portrait. The portrait was always there. The portrait was just waiting to be seen. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There is one more figure in the show who deserves attention in this analysis, and the figure is Penny Fitzgerald. Penny is, across the series, Gumball's central romantic interest. Penny is also, in many ways, the show's most quietly resilient character. Penny absorbs Gumball at a register that nobody else does, because Penny is choosing to be near him in a way that family members do not have to choose. Family members are stuck with him. Penny is not. Penny stays anyway, and the show, in the long arc of their relationship, keeps quietly asking what it is like to choose proximity to someone like Gumball. The answer the show provides is complicated. Penny is not naive about what she is choosing. Penny sees him. Penny notices the engine. Penny calls it out in episodes where she has the opportunity. And Penny, having seen all of it, keeps choosing him anyway. The show is not framing this as a triumph. The show is not framing it as a tragedy. The show is framing it as a fact. Penny has decided. The decision is hers. The decision has costs. She pays them. There are episodes in which Penny's patience nearly snaps. There are episodes in which she walks away. There are episodes in which Gumball, in a smaller and more honest register than he usually operates in, tries to do right by her. Those episodes are some of the show's most carefully made. They are not built around the engine. They are built around the gap between the engine and the person Gumball would be if the engine could be quieted. Penny is, in those moments, the person who can sometimes quiet the engine for him. Penny is the person whose presence makes the editor pause. Penny is the person around whom Gumball is, briefly, capable of being closer to himself than he can manage on his own. The show is not pretending this is sustainable. The show is showing you that it happens, and then letting it pass, and then returning to the engine in the next episode. But the moments are real. The moments are part of the portrait, and the moments are part of why the going too far episodes are not the whole story, even though they are a true story. Penny's existence in the show is the show's gentlest statement that Gumball is loved by people who could leave. Family love is involuntary in a way that romantic love is not. Penny stays voluntarily. Darwin stays voluntarily, in a different register, but Darwin is in the family by adoption, and that is a different kind of choice. Penny is the cleanest case of someone choosing, freely, to be near the engine, and choosing it again, every day, with full information. The show treats that choice with respect. The show does not romanticize it. The show does not sentimentalize it. The show simply puts it on screen and lets you see what it costs, and lets you see what it gives back, and lets you decide, for yourself, whether the math works out. For most viewers, the math does work out. Penny stays because Penny has done the calculation, and the calculation comes out positive. The going too far is real. The decency is also real. The engine is loud. The flicker is true. The Gumball who hurts her is also the Gumball who, in his best moments, is capable of seeing her with a clarity that nobody else in her life is capable of. The show is showing you that those are the same Gumball, and that the love Penny feels is not despite the engine, but next to it, and that the next to-ness is its own valid kind of love, and that pretending otherwise would be a smaller and more dishonest kind of show. There is a reason this video has spent so much time on the costs and so little time on the rewards. And the reason is that the costs are the part that the audience tends to underweight. The rewards are easy to see. The rewards are the comedy, the cleverness, the loyalty, the energy, the sheer aliveness of the character. Those things are why people love Gumball in the first place. Those things do not need a video essay to defend them. The costs, on the other hand, often get smoothed over. The costs are the things the audience laughs at and then forgets. The costs are the things the next episode ignores. The costs are the things the show, in its careful refusal to editorialize, leaves on the floor for you to pick up if you want to. This video has been picking them up. This video has been gathering them. And this video has, by gathering them, tried to give the costs the same weight that the show, in its design, has always quietly suggested they deserve. The thesis of the video, restated one more time before the end, is this: Gumball Watterson goes too far constantly. The going too far is not an aberration. The going too far is a function of who he is. The function produces real damage, paid by named characters in named episodes, with consequences that the show has made visible if you look. The going too far is also inseparable from the qualities that make Gumball lovable. The going too far is, in some real sense, the same engine as the loving. You cannot have one without the other. The show knows this. The show shows you this. The show does not ask you to choose, and the show does not ask you to stop loving him. The show only asks you to see clearly. The seeing clearly is the work. The seeing clearly is what the show, across 10 years and 240 episodes, has been training the careful viewer to do. And once you have done the seeing clearly, the show changes. The show stops being a comedy with occasional dark moments. The show becomes a portrait with occasional comic relief. The structure inverts. The deeper layer becomes the dominant layer, and the surface comedy becomes the lighter texture that the deeper layer happens to be wearing. That is, in many ways, the most generous gift the show gives to its long-term viewers. It gives them a different show on the second watch, and on the third, and on the fourth. The show keeps unfolding. The flickers keep showing themselves. The doors not taken keep being visible. The bills keep being countable. The portrait keeps deepening, and the deepening keeps producing new affection, even as the new affection is built on a clearer-eyed understanding of what is being loved. That is the kind of show The Amazing World of Gumball turned out to be. That is the show that this video has been about. That is the show that, when it ended, did not so much conclude as simply step back and let the engine continue running off screen. The engine is still running. It is running in your head. Every time you remember an episode you watched as a kid and notice now what you did not notice then. The engine is running every time you put the show on for background and catch yourself slowing down at a moment that, on first watch, did not register. The engine is running every time you tell someone about the show and find yourself mid-sentence, rephrasing what you were about to say because you realized just then that the show was not actually doing what you had been planning to claim it was doing. The engine outlasts the run. The engine keeps producing meaning long after the production company stopped producing episodes. That is, in the end, what makes a great show great. The engine outlasts the run. The portrait keeps describing the subject. The seeing keeps deepening. The Amazing World of Gumball, with all of its silliness, with all of its color, with all of its barely controlled visual style, has produced an engine that meets that standard. The engine is Gumball Watterson, the going too far kid, the lover, the liar, the leader of the school in cardboard boxes, the boy in the kitchen who almost saw and then chose not to, the older brother of the absorber and the namer, the son of the exhausted woman and the absent man, the romantic partner of the girl who keeps choosing him, the protagonist who is also the antagonist, the hero who is also the villain, the kid you love, and the kid who hurts the people you love. He goes too far. He always has. He always will. The show told you so, in episode after episode, with extraordinary care. This video has been the long form of saying back what the show said. The show said it. The video heard it. You, by watching this far, have heard it too. There is nothing else to say. The portrait is finished. The credits are about to roll. Before the credits, one last frame is worth offering, because it is the frame that, more than any other, lets the show keep its tenderness without losing its honesty. Gumball Watterson is, in the end, a portrait of a person who is loved by the camera. The camera does not look away. The camera does not flinch at the worst things he does. The camera also does not pretend the worst things did not happen. The camera holds him in his entirety, including the parts that the audience would prefer not to see. And the holding is the act of love that the show, in every episode, is performing on its own protagonist. The camera could have looked away. The camera could have softened. The camera could have edited the engine out and given you a cleaner, more comfortable kid to root for. The camera does not. The camera shows you all of him. And the showing is the show's most generous gesture, because the showing is the only kind of love that does not require a fiction to sustain itself. There is a phrase that often gets used about long-running television, that a show, by the end, knows its characters better than the characters know themselves. The Amazing World of Gumball is that kind of show. The show, by the end of its run, knows Gumball better than Gumball will ever know himself. And the show, in its design, has spent 10 years quietly making the case that someone has to do that, knowing if the character is to be loved completely. Gumball cannot do it. The editor will not let him. So the show does it on his behalf. The show holds the truth of him in storage, in the form of 240 episodes, available to anyone who chooses to look. That storage is its own kind of mercy. That storage is the show saying, on Gumball's behalf, the things he cannot say himself. The going too far is real. The loving is real. The flicker is real. The doors not taken are real. The dinner table is real. The credits are about to roll. When the credits roll, the engine does not stop. The engine simply moves into the audience. The audience carries the engine forward, in memory, in conversation, in late-night essays like this one, in the small acts of recognition that happen when someone in your own life does the Gumball thing, and you find yourself, for a moment, understanding what is happening with a clarity that you would not have had if you had not watched the show. The show has trained you. The show has given you a vocabulary. The show has put a name on a pattern that, before the show, you might not have had words for. The pattern is the engine. The engine has a name now. The engine is Gumball Watterson. And the next time you see the engine, in any room, in any face, in any voice, you will recognize it. And you will know what it produces. And you will know what loving someone with the engine costs. And you will know that the costs are real. And you will know that the loving can still, sometimes, be worth it. That is what the show gave you. That is what this video has been trying to give back. 2 hours, in the dark, slowly, with the volume low, gathering up what the show, episode by episode, has been quietly placing in your hand. The hand is full now. The video can end. The portrait is complete. The kid is asleep at the dinner table, finally still. The engine briefly quiet. The family around him. The night settling on the small house in the small town. The camera holding the image 1 beat longer than it needs to. The way the show always did, when it wanted you to see something it was not going to say out loud. The image will hold for a while after the screen goes dark. The image will hold while you are falling asleep. The image will hold while the next episode of your own life begins to load, and the small recognitions begin to surface, and the long quiet work of seeing the people in your own life clearly resumes, where the show gracefully leaves it. The show ends. The seeing does not. The show was the lesson. The seeing is the use. And the use, applied with care, with patience, with the same refusal to flinch that the show modeled across its entire run, is the kind of slow, quiet, accumulating attention that turns affection into wisdom, and turns wisdom into the kind of love that does not need to be told what it is loving in order to keep on doing it. The show gave you the model. The model is yours now. The kid is asleep. The kitchen is quiet. The credits roll. If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next.